He knows what happened last night, and so does the entire Cleveland locker room. A rising star benched under the bright lights, a sideline in shock, a crowd robbed of the moment they came to see. This wasn't a rookie mistake. It was a setup, and now the word sabotage is echoing inside the Browns facility like a ticking time bomb. But who actually pulled the trigger? Was it a bad coaching decision or something darker? Fans saw one thing: a confident young quarterback dominate the preseason, electrify the offense, and build real momentum heading into the season. But when the lights came on for the final preseason game, he was pulled, replaced, benched. And not because he played poorly, but because someone didn't want him on that field. Insiders say this wasn't strategic rotation or cautious development. It was calculated, deliberate, public, embarrassing. Within hours, his camp was on the phone with league officials. Angry texts lit up coaches' phones. Players confronted staff. Fans stormed the team facility. Rumors of front office sabotage, internal politics, and power struggles began flooding the airwaves. At the center of it all, Sanders, the rookie QB that many believe was never supposed to succeed here in the first place. He led in every major preseason stat, earned respect in the huddle, and was backed by an explosive fan movement. But instead of being protected, he was ambushed, live on television. And now, he wants out. But this story isn't just about one quarterback. It's about what happens when internal dysfunction, personal egos, and desperate power plays start poisoning a franchise from within. Because as shocking as it sounds, this may go far beyond football. And what's happening behind closed doors in Cleveland? It might be far worse than fans imagined. From the moment Sanders stepped onto the field in preseason, it was clear this wasn't just another rookie. This was the guy. He completed nearly 80% of his passes, led 4 touchdown drives, took absolute control in the huddle like a seasoned veteran. Players felt it. Fans saw it. Even coaches quietly acknowledged his spark. He wasn't just playing well, he was changing the energy of the team. Meanwhile, his main competition, Dillon Gabriel, struggled. Poor pocket presence, scattered throws, low completion rates, just 1 touchdown drive. And yet, when the nationally televised game against the Rams hit its peak moment, the Browns trailing with 2 minutes left, it wasn't Sanders called to lead the comeback. Stefanski pulled him. Sanders benched in front of a national audience. Gabriel, who had been struggling all preseason, was thrown into the spotlight. The stadium froze. Fans were stunned. Cameras caught the chaos on the sideline. Sanders stood motionless, helmet on, staring at the field like he'd just been blindsided. Sources say he held it together in public, but behind the scenes, there was rage, pure boiling disbelief. It wasn't just disrespect, it felt personal. And if you're thinking maybe it was just a last-minute rotation or play-calling decision, think again. This was no accident, not when Sanders had done everything right. Not when the stakes were that high. This wasn't about performance anymore. This was something darker, something intentional. And that's the moment players started whispering the word sabotage. And it wouldn't stay a whisper for long. Inside NFL locker rooms, players talk, but they rarely break ranks. Not like this. Moments after the Rams game, rumors began bubbling. But by the next morning, they were boiling over. A veteran player broke the silence, telling reporters, "Everybody here knows Sanders is QB1. This ain't about how he played. This is personal." Personal. That one word flipped everything. Suddenly, this wasn't just about a coaching decision. It was about a deliberate agenda unfolding behind the scenes. Anonymous players started coming forward. Position coaches were being flooded with complaints. Even offensive linemen, who usually stay far away from the politics, were speaking up, saying they trusted Sanders in the pocket and were shocked he wasn't given the final reps. And it wasn't just whispers in the hallway. It was detailed, intentional, controlled. Multiple sources describe Stefanski's move as a message, not a strategy. A power play by a head coach trying to assert control in a locker room that was slowly slipping away from him. To some inside the facility, Sanders wasn't just a rookie quarterback. He was a threat to the existing hierarchy, to the coaching staff's authority, and to the fragile politics that rule every NFL team. And then there was the kicker. Reports surfaced that Sanders knew it was coming. Not the exact moment, but the vibe, the back-channel cues, the tension with certain coaches, the passive-aggressive comments in meetings. He was set up to fail, and when the moment arrived, they made sure it happened under the brightest lights. Sabotage no longer felt like a theory. It was starting to feel like fact. But what happened next would ignite chaos far beyond Cleveland's locker room. 12 hours. That's how long it took before Sanders' camp made their first move. By Sunday morning, league offices were already receiving calls. His agents weren't panicking. They were calculating, quietly pulling contract details, reviewing trade request procedures, analyzing image rights. They knew this wasn't an ordinary benching. This was a professional hit, and they were treating it like one. Behind the scenes, it was all hands on deck. Documentation started piling up. Game film, practice performance stats, teammate testimonials. Everything proving Sanders had earned that spotlight. Everything showing he was deliberately denied it. Meanwhile, fans weren't waiting for front offices to respond. They took the fight public. By Sunday afternoon, protesters gathered at the Browns facility in Berea. Homemade signs reading "Start Sanders Now" and "Fire Stefanski" started spreading across social media. Within hours, hashtags like #FreeShedeur and #LetHimCook were trending nationally. Fan forums became digital war rooms, planning media campaigns, tagging sponsors, organizing group chants for upcoming games. This wasn't a football conversation anymore. It was a cultural eruption. And Cleveland's front office? Paralyzed. Coaches were reportedly getting bombarded with mixed messages. Some front office members wanted to contain it. Others, they wanted to quietly explore trade options while the media storm could still be spun. Corporate sponsors weren't silent either. Several advertisers who had banked heavily on Sanders as the face of Cleveland's new era began privately expressing frustration. They didn't just invest in a QB, they bet on a narrative. And now, it was falling apart. At this point, it was clear. This controversy wasn't going away. It wasn't something they could sweep under the turf after a tough loss, because Sanders wasn't just ready to leave. He was ready to expose exactly why. To understand what's really happening in Cleveland, you have to follow the power, not the playbook. At the center of this storm is a battle that's been brewing since draft night. A quiet war between head coach Kevin Stefanski and team owner Jimmy Haslam. Sources say Haslam made it clear, behind closed doors, Sanders was the future. The quarterback wasn't just a draft pick. He was a mandate. His selection came with cameras, millions of followers, and the kind of charisma that sells out jerseys before he even takes a snap. But Stefanski never wanted him. What he did want was control. According to insiders, the coach had already staked his claim on Dillon Gabriel, a third-round pick he personally scouted and vouched for. Going all in on Sanders so early would have made that investment look like a mistake. And in the NFL, protecting your decisions sometimes matters more than winning games. So Stefanski dug in, quietly resisting ownership pressure while crafting a different narrative. Sanders wasn't ready. Too flashy, too Hollywood, too raw. The kind of criticism that can buy a coach time while slowly shifting blame. But here's the problem. No one inside the locker room was buying it. Players saw who was taking command during practice. Coaches, ones not handpicked by Stefanski, knew who was actually moving the offense. Some reportedly warned that keeping Sanders on the sideline would cause internal damage. Stefanski didn't budge. So when Sanders was benched in that critical preseason moment, it didn't just feel unfair, it felt like retaliation. A silent battle had turned public, and what started as a quarterback controversy had just become a full-blown power crisis in Cleveland. While the headlines focused on Sanders and Stefanski, a third name started popping up quietly behind the scenes. Joe Flacco, the veteran, the former Super Bowl champ, the elder statesman of the quarterback room. On paper, Flacco had no beef in this battle. He wasn't competing for the starting job, and at this point, many saw him as a mentor. But according to team sources, his influence ran deeper and more politically than anyone expected. Insiders claim Flacco developed a strong relationship with Stefanski over the past year, one built on mutual respect and consistent dialogue. The kind of relationship that carries weight in closed-door meetings. The kind that can quietly nudge decisions without ever needing to speak publicly. And apparently, Flacco didn't believe Sanders should be handed the keys just yet. Not because Sanders lacked talent, but because he hadn't earned his stripes. It's an old-school mindset. Rookies wait, veterans lead, and the starting spot is something you fight for, not get gifted because you went viral on draft night. So while Flacco never campaigned directly against Sanders, multiple players reported that his body language and offhand comments in meetings started creating unease. Subtle, but powerful. The coaching staff, already split over the handling of Gabriel and Sanders, now had another variable to manage. And this one came from a guy who had nothing to lose, but everything to influence. Flacco's presence in the room gave Stefanski cover. It validated the idea that bringing Sanders along slowly was the mature decision, that benching him wasn't sabotage, just caution. But for others, it was clear. Flacco wasn't just watching quietly. He was shaping the room. And that influence may have added more fuel to a fire already burning out of control. By the time Monday morning rolled around, front offices across the league had already taken notice. Sanders benching wasn't just a controversial moment. It became a signal, a green light, and teams thirsty for talent began to quietly circle, watching the chaos in Cleveland unfold like it was a live trade auction in disguise. Whispers started with the New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers may be the starter, but his injury history is a ticking clock. Behind the scenes, sources say New York sees Sanders not only as insurance, but as a future marketable franchise face in a city starving for one. Then came the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, still searching for an identity post-Brady. They reportedly inquired informally about Sanders' situation just days after the game. No official offers, but very real interest. Soon after, the Las Vegas Raiders joined the conversation. Quiet calls, casual feelers, just enough to say, if Cleveland's done with him, we're not. Even the Miami Dolphins, out of nowhere, started trending as a sleeper destination. Why? Their offensive coordinator reportedly knows Sanders from the college circuit and has already spoken highly of his game privately. But here's the twist. This isn't just about who needs a quarterback. It's about who wants the brand that comes with Sanders. He's not just a player, he's a digital movement. Cameras follow him constantly. His name trends weekly. His jersey sales crushed every other Browns rookie within 48 hours of draft night. For teams with QB uncertainty, Sanders represents more than talent. He's a walking content engine and revenue machine. And the Browns? They're watching all of this unfold, while the fan revolt inside their own walls grows louder every hour. Because if Sanders is viewed as a franchise saver somewhere else, why were they so quick to cast him aside? Cleveland fans have been through every kind of heartbreak imaginable, but this felt different. This time, they weren't just angry, they were mobilized. Within 24 hours of Sanders benching, the city turned digital outrage into physical protests. Crowds gathered outside the Browns facility in Berea, holding signs that read "Start Sanders now" and "Fire Stefanski." But this wasn't just emotional venting. It was strategic frustration. Organized, focused. Online, it got even louder. The hashtag #FreeShedeur exploded across TikTok and X, formerly Twitter. Screenshots of Sanders' preseason stats flooded timelines. Clips of the benching moment went viral with millions of views. Fans weren't debating anymore. They were demanding answers. Then came hashtag #LetHimCook, rallying cry from Browns fans tired of watching another talented quarterback get buried by politics. Hundreds of thousands of posts, video compilations of Sanders' highlights, mock coaching breakdowns showing how the playbook seemed to shift only during his drives. And that noise, it reached where it hurts most: corporate sponsors. Inside sources say big money advertisers contacted Browns execs and even league offices, bluntly asking, what's going on with Sanders? See, these brands had spent millions betting on Sanders' image. He wasn't just another rookie. He was supposed to be the marketable face of the franchise, the social media-powered golden child with Madison Avenue potential. Now, that investment looked like it was going up in flames, torched by front office dysfunction and coaching ego. Networks reportedly issued quiet concerns about ratings. Sanders' debut pulled 4.5 million viewers. His absence? Barely 200,000. That's not a coincidence. It's a crisis. At this point, this wasn't about a team protecting a player. It looked like a franchise tearing down its own future, one decision at a time. While chaos swirled around him, Sanders said nothing. No angry tweets, no press conferences, no late-night interviews throwing coaches under the bus. Just complete, calculated silence. And that silence, it spoke louder than anything else. By staying quiet, he wasn't just protecting his trade value. He was showing maturity that stunned even veteran players, letting his performance, his numbers, his locker room support do the talking. But Stefanski, he wasn't so silent. Public appearances turned cold. Press conferences became awkward standoffs. When asked direct questions about quarterback decisions, Stefanski gave corporate answers, empty phrases that only escalated suspicions. Inside sources described him as defensive, even paranoid. Some within the facility said he was unraveling under mounting pressure from ownership, media, and now the fans. Meanwhile, the locker room split wide open. Offensive players reportedly started forming around Sanders. For his playmaking, sure, but also for his leadership. Linemen were buzzing about how he read defenses like a vet. Receivers knew his timing and rhythm gave them more targets. Even defensive players, normally uninvolved, were now quietly questioning the coaching decisions and game planning. Coaches? Stuck. Do they follow the head coach's directive or trust what everyone can clearly see? And in the background, emergency meetings continued behind closed doors. Ownership wanted answers. The front office wanted a solution. But nobody wanted to admit they'd created a mess that was getting uglier by the day. The team wasn't just divided, it was frozen. Unable to move forward, unwilling to admit mistakes. On the outside, fans saw a quarterback controversy. On the inside, it was something much more dangerous. An identity crisis, tearing the franchise apart. So what happens now? Sources say Sanders still wants out, and if things don't change fast, Cleveland might lose one of the most talented, marketable quarterbacks they've ever drafted, before he's even started a regular season game. A trade could happen quietly, or this could escalate publicly. But one thing is certain, the damage done may already be irreversible. And it's not just Sanders that the Browns are risking. It's trust. Trust from players who believed performance mattered more than politics. Trust from fans who finally thought they'd found the face of the future. Trust from sponsors, networks, and national media who bet big on Sanders as the next big name in football. If Cleveland lets this moment go to waste, lets the noise fade without real accountability, They're not just making another quarterback mistake. They're adding to a legacy of dysfunction that's already crushed too many careers. Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson. At some point, the problem stops being the quarterback and starts being the franchise. And maybe that's why this story has hit so hard with fans. Because for once, they can see it happening in real time. A rookie shows promise. Then politics kick in. Power plays take over. And the team, once again, pushes potential out the door. Sanders didn't just threaten the depth chart. He threatened the system. And unless someone inside that building steps up and fixes what's broken, Cleveland is going to lose far more than a quarterback. They're going to lose the future.